Welcome to another episode of The Thriving Misfits, where we celebrate resilience, embrace diversity, and challenge norms. I'm your host, Fiona Young, and today's guest is a true changemaker who is passionate about supporting those who are often held back by a lack of opportunity in our society. As the founder and CEO of both Impact Hong Kong and Love 21 Foundation, Jeff has dedicated his life to empowering individuals and providing them with the tools they need to reach their full potential. Through a holistic approach, his work focuses on giving people a true chance to thrive and break free from the barriers they face. I'm excited to dive into Jeff's incredible journey of impact, the vision behind these two powerful organizations, and how he is creating real lasting change for those who need it most. So welcome, Jeff. Welcome to the Thriving Misfits podcast.
Great to be here. I look forward to our discussion.
It's so amazing that we're still in touch after all these years. I remember you're actually a neighbor of mine in Hong Kong. We lived just next door. And I don't know, I just came across your post on, I think it was on Facebook, about kindness walks. And that really intrigued me. So I'm sure you're going to share a little bit more about kindness walks. But for me, it was just really an insightful experience to see how people who are homeless or even the elderly live in our neighborhood. And I've lived in North Point in Hong Kong for 7 years at that time, and never really, you basically opened my eyes, and just making sure that we reach out to those in need. My Cantonese is not that great, but the little things that we can do for them, and also all the things that I've learned through your kindness walks was amazing.
Yeah, same here. I was thankfully given an opportunity to meet the homeless population, I guess about 13, 14 years ago. And at that time, I knew nothing about homelessness. I didn't know that homelessness was even an issue in Hong Kong. And yeah, thankfully, I just got a chance to go out and meet that community. And similar to you, I just wanted to do more and, started doing what we could. And yeah, it led to really starting an initiative of what we call kindness walks, basically going outside, showing care to people in need. And, as a charity, we do this every day. We do about 100 walks a month now. We distribute around 15,000 meals a month outside on the streets here. So it's a huge amount of food support. And actually, in our time, really since the beginning, we've had about 40,000 unique volunteers. So it's been a movement of just so many people coming together with really that one goal, which is just to care for people and do what we can.
Wow, that's amazing. But before we dive into all the amazing work you're doing with Impact Hong Kong and Love 21 Foundation, let's start with something that's a little bit more fun to get to know you a bit better. So if you could have any superpower to help you in your mission, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I guess it's a tricky one. I thought about this question, I was like, the thing that just keeps coming back to me is really what are the main obstacles that really hold back ImpactHK and Love 21 from being able to be fully successful. And, in large part that has to do with the government of Hong Kong, so it's really, it's really a big limitation. At the end of the day, we can do as much as we can and create the strongest, most holistic models to care for people. We really hope that results in policy change here, and it results in a real change in Hong Kong. And I think that has to come through better leadership. It has to come through leadership that emphasizes the importance of caring for our neighbors and caring for people in our community. And yeah, I think that's just what jumps in my head. It's not the typical one of like flying or, other superpowers, but I just would love to have the ability to be able to connect with the government and help them see a little clearer as to how you actually help people who need psychological care.
All right. Now let's hear from you a little bit more about what Impact Hong Kong is about, and also Love 21 Foundation, so that we get a better idea.
Yeah, Love 21, we are working with the Down syndrome and autistic community mostly. It's a very neurodiverse community. We're now supporting roughly 500 families. And yeah, when I say families, I mean it. We support the entire family. Every month we, on average now, have around 600 classes. So, these are a big range of classes from tons of sport, of course, but also lots of dance, therapeutic classes, some more extreme sports like dragon boat racing and climbing, etc. But we have a very strong nutrition program to complement that. So our nutrition and dietary programs are for the whole family. That's where we're matching our dietitian with the family and for their specific needs. And That's been an incredible program. We're seeing so much fat loss, muscle gain, but even we're doing a lot with probiotics now. So we're looking at gut health, and the benefits of that, especially for our autistic friends, has been incredible. Having a healthier gut and the way they're sleeping, how their mood's improved. So very exciting work there. We're really excited to continue pursuing. Family support programs like counseling for parents and siblings. It's really hard. Actually of the 500 families we support now, over 60%, well over 60% are single mother households. So we're talking about people that are really in great need, and they need help. They need community. They need love, support, of course, right? So we also have a lot of classes that are for parents only. So every day we have classes where the parents can just have fun, relax together, but also peer support groups at night where they can share, they can cry together, they can help each other. That's where you see a lot of our parents growing so much, through the advice of other parents and the support from the community. But we also have educational workshops to, better equip the parents, help them deal with some really extreme challenges that, they're sometimes presented with. And yeah, it's been a big step. That's an area where we're going to really be improving a lot in this coming year. We're working in employment, helping our friends to find purpose and be more seen, to use their talents like you and I can. And also, of course, when you're working with communities that are held back, you have to focus a lot on public education, raising awareness, and helping them to be seen. And that's Love 21. It's a holistic model with a whole person development type strategy, and similar to how ImpactHK is as well. Rooms are not enough, classes are not enough, sport is not enough. You have to really look at the same things that you and I need in our lives to be able to thrive, or to be able to step forward and reach our full potential, as you said. So with ImpactHK, yes, we provide a ton of food. As I mentioned, around 15,000 meals a month. But our ultimate goal is to try to help people off the streets. And that's been where we've been doing quite well, I will say. In the last 2 years, we've helped an average about every 3 days a new person off the streets into our long-term shelter. And, we've now helped close to 650 people in total off the streets. But at the same time, we're seeing roughly about 70% now of those individuals graduating and becoming financially independent. And that's only possible because of a really strong holistic model, which includes medical now. We have 2 nurses on staff, big counseling program. Casework is really at the center of our model. Every day as well, tons of sport and community classes to help our friends feel more engaged. Very important, because of the 650-ish people that we've helped off the streets so far, about 90% have no emergency contact when we meet them. So when we're having to provide funeral services for some of our friends, they don't have a single family member in their life that even wants to attend that funeral. So we're talking about people who are completely alone. So rooms, obviously not enough. Community is really important. And we're doing all we can to really look at each individual and for their specific talents and needs, and trying to help them and walk alongside them as they take this really difficult journey to try and escape incredible pain.
I mean, that's just so amazing. You're now the CEO of 2 NGOs in Hong Kong. I mean, when we met each other a few years ago, well, not a few years ago, definitely 8. At that time, I was still in corporate. I remember that. So it must be at least 8, 9 years ago. You were a teacher in Hong Kong. And I mean, it's amazing to see your passion, supporting Down syndrome, autistic communities. Can you share with us what first drew you to this cause, and also what has helped you to keep motivated along the way? Because you also mentioned that there are, hurdles that you're facing, especially when it comes to Hong Kong government. So what kept you motivated?
Yeah, it's been a beautiful experience. First, I think in my life, the thing that makes me find success in the way that I have is really gratitude, and just being grateful for the people around me and the amazing supporters that are all helping along the way. Although I am founder and CEO of both, none of them would be possible by myself alone, of course. It's taken a really huge community and a ton of support. And yeah, it's just something I'm just very grateful for. So first and foremost, I think that's really what's been able to keep me going, is that focus. Secondly, I really like standing up for people, who are unfairly judged. And I like using my voice to stand up for them and support them and make sure that they are getting a fair shake, because it's so common today in society where people are just writing off communities and trying to justify reasons to not care for other people and to blame them when they're coming from definitely a position of privilege. And the people that you meet who are experiencing homelessness, especially, These are people that have really been dealt an incredibly unfair hand of cards, you know, and you see it again and again and again. I mean, I'm here today and I was able to take that transition from being a teacher to CEO of two NGOs because, well, in large part, I have a ton of confidence, you know, and also I've been given an incredible amount of love from my mom and dad from day one. I've always had their support in every way. A friend that I work with ImpactHK, who now has been working full time with me for 5 years, is a gentleman who I met while he was sleeping in a tunnel. This gentleman's first years of his life, he never had a mother. He never had a father. You know, he was never held as a baby. He lacked that nurturing and that love, which is essential, you know, and he never got an opportunity to have anything like I did in my life. And, you know, it's just completely unacceptable and unfair. And, you know, I don't want to live in a city where I'm soaking up my privileges and I'm watching people next to me who are just treated unfairly and need basic support, but at the same time are being hated on and judged and blamed because they're in that situation. It's really it's quite a cruel world sometimes. So yeah, I find that is something that really drives me and I'm very motivated by that. And of course I want to see both NGOs be able to succeed without me. So it's a really big, you know, step that I have to make sure that all this work will come to fruition and we can see the vision come to light and we'll be able to, you know, see the charities really get to where they need to be.
Yeah, and leave that legacy behind. So as you said, even maybe someday without you, it's still going to continue, right, with that.
It has to. It has to. You know, right. I mean, of course, sometimes in charities you say, oh, the goal of a charity is to become redundant, right? To no longer be needed, right? But in this case, that's not really going to happen. You know, you really need... You need to have these types of support networks available. If the government could handle it, that's great. But the likelihood of that is very, very low.
At least not anytime soon, unfortunately. Yeah. So, you know, for me personally, I have a cousin who has autism. But other than that, I don't really have that much touch points with people with autism or even with Down syndrome. Of course, these days, we're much more open talking about neurodivergence in the workplace, really embracing neurodiversity. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about individuals with Down syndrome or autism, and how can we work together to change those perceptions?
Yeah, it's a community who are hardly seen. Most people that I know have never even met someone with Down syndrome or autism. So when we have corporate volunteers, for example, coming over to Love 21, it's often their very first time ever meeting someone with autism or Down syndrome. And my first time ever as well was about 18 years ago in Hong Kong. Canada has quite an inclusive education system, but still, I never had that chance in my whole, you know, my first 30 years of my life. So yeah, it's a shame. I know how much of a shame it is now because it's been such a blessing to get to know that community and to better understand them. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions and I think a lot of ignorance when it comes to that community. And they're basically mostly labeled by their disability and the things that they cannot do. And that's really what people talk and think about most, which is really shocking in a way. I mean, I couldn't imagine personally walking outside and people constantly looking at me for my negatives, you know, which I definitely have. You know, it's not really it doesn't make sense to be looking at people and thinking about what they cannot do. And it is a community that are constantly being looked at in that way. And, you know, the second part of your question, I think the key is really in how do you open up more eyes and hearts to this community and how do you really showcase how much ability they have? And I think that's one thing we're going to do quite well this year. We're really going to up our social media game and we're going to highlight just constantly acts of achievement, you know, because we're not seeing that enough in Asia, but especially in Hong Kong. So in Canada, where I come from, US, UK, etc., you're very, very regularly seeing individuals with Down syndrome getting university degrees, getting married, living independently, having a beer in the bar. These are what people do. This is what humans do. And we're not seeing any of that in Hong Kong. And when an individual with Down syndrome finished an Ironman quite recently, that news spread internationally in a minute. You know, it's an amazing thing. I mean, me personally, I could never do an Ironman. I have no interest. I couldn't handle the pain. And they did, you know, and he did. And this achievement is something that really opens up eyes and hearts really quickly. So we want to basically just be celebrating ability, focusing a lot on these achievements and trying to showcase their talents to Hong Kong. And I think, you know, when they're seen more and people get to understand how many strengths they have and how much they add value to our society, That's one thing. But, first, sometimes you have to make sure that they're just being given a fair opportunity and not treated with so much hate and ignorance.
Absolutely.
In our centers, when our families are there, they're so happy and accepted and comfortable and loved. But when they're commuting from their homes to our center, they're met with a lot of judgment and hate. And if their child cannot handle a certain issue and has an emotional moment, like we all do from time to time, but with autism, sometimes that doesn't look as common as we're used to. And we want that child and that mother to be cared for, not people walking away or yelling at them or pointing at them. We want these mothers and fathers to be feeling cared for in the city when they step out, that their child's going to be somewhat nurtured by community love and support.
Definitely. I think it's, as you mentioned already, you're also supporting the parents, the caregivers. They need a lot of support in that space, how to advocate for themselves, how to advocate for their children, right? Now, going back to the homeless in Hong Kong, and maybe let's have a look at it from a more cultural lens, right? You've mentioned a lot of different challenges already, including also the Hong Kong government. But what do you think is the biggest hurdle in helping people who are experiencing homelessness? And any idea, or what have you done to overcome it?
Yeah, for us, our model works. I've no doubt that we'll get up to about a 90% success rate of graduation, because it is the best model you can have in the world, to be honest. There's really nothing stronger in terms of having a holistic model where you have every piece of the puzzle. A big part that we do very well is in helping our friends to find purpose. We now have around 60 full-time staff. So we have a very big staff with ImpactHK, but a little bit more than, a bit of a cold. A little bit more than 20% of our staff used to experience homelessness. So, we're helping our friends to find purpose, and, they're working with us, they're caring for others for their job, and it's in turn greatly helped them as well. The model works, and it can be tailor-made to any individual, whether their friends have drug addiction issues, schizophrenia, psychosis. These are the individuals that we're working with and meeting on the streets, and we're trying to create a program that can help them all. So really, the only limitation we have is money. That's it. If we have the money to be able to provide the care that's needed, we can definitely help any individual off the streets. The strategy starts from day one and just simply earning trust on the streets and not forcing the issue. We're not lifesavers as a charity. We provide real opportunities for individuals, but it comes down to that trust process at the beginning so much. And, trust is key, because you're working with people that have really given up on themselves and humanity. So when you can establish that level of trust and care, where they know that we're genuine, and they know that we're only there for one reason, which is to help and see if we can provide a helping hand. That's where we see friends taking that step with us, and then, finding, happiness.
Right. Yeah. Now, you mentioned what is one of the hurdles would be the money, right? Like, so how can we donate? How can the listeners support Impact Hong Kong and Love 21 Foundation?
Yeah, so many ways, financially. Our websites, impacthk.org, love21foundation.com, two websites you can check out. Volunteering activities, you can go through there as well. But yeah, financially, that's always our strap. We should be fully government funded, of course, in my opinion, because we're providing vital services for Hong Kong. And I would say charities are really struggling financially, not just us. It's a very difficult time because, so many societal issues here, so many charities doing the best they can, but it's a big challenge because there's a very limited amount of funding. I do think individual donors definitely need to step up more. I know it's a difficult time as well for many, but many of us do have the capability to contribute more. I think we should. I think we should invest in charities that we believe in, that are transparent and are doing good work. And I think I'd like to see more people, contribute. I also try to contribute to other charities and other friends that are doing important initiatives and fundraising for, very much needed causes. So I think it's time to step up a little bit and make sure that we're, finding a little bit of balance here. We're taxed very little in Hong Kong. And we sometimes forget that we're also living in a city where 20% of the people are growing up in poverty. 20% of the people are struggling with food insecurity. And that's a pathway that leads to even more difficult outcomes. So I think it's a time to step up, I'd say, and do what we can, whether it be giving out your time, your money, your resources, etc. Let's try and contribute.
Yeah. If we just, don't buy that Starbucks drink every single morning, right? And just donate that. That's kind
Yeah,
of easy to do, right? I think it's just putting things in perspective.
very true. Which could lead to the conversation on social enterprise and how important it is to have more social enterprises that are, providing really high quality coffee or high quality products, but still are using that profit to actually for the greater good. And they're using that product to raise cash towards something that's needed in society. So, social enterprises are a big part of the future, I would expect. And with ImpactHK and Love 21 as well, we'll definitely be moving towards a stronger social enterprise model.
Mm.
ImpactHK right now, we have a coffee shop, which is inside UBS Bank, My Kinda Cafe. And, that's going quite well. We've turned a profit now every month for the last couple of years, and it's going well. But I think you have to also match a good social enterprise better aligns with the service user. So it better aligns with the employment opportunity that our friends off the streets want to make. So, we'll be making some changes and some new plans, which I'm excited to announce sometime soon.
Oh, yes, exciting. Now, I mean, you're doing such incredible work, no doubt, right? In the Down syndrome and autistic community, but also with the homelessness in Hong Kong. How are you taking care of yourself, though? I mean, we know the saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. So, how do you take care of yourself? How do you spend your time to recharge?
Yeah, this is probably where I have the most fails. It's difficult. I'm very good at caring for other people and sacrificing. And when it comes to my own personal health, I'm not. I try hard right now. I'm really trying hard because, like I said, I want to make sure that I'm around to make sure these charities can, be sustainable without me. And I think that'll happen. I'm feeling quite healthy these days. I exercise a lot. I'm trying to have as healthy a diet as possible, drinking a lot less because I can't work hungover at all. So, it's definitely been me trying in this like midlife crisis here, kind of to have a really healthy, trying to be healthier, trying to be very responsible, just doing what I can. Because, the risks are huge, I must say, although we're very established, both NGOs are 7 years old now. And I think both NGOs, if I were to leave right now today, I think they would both be alive, but they would have to greatly reduce the amount of programs that we support because it'd be difficult to raise the cash. And, I am good in the fundraising side, and that's a strength of mine. And as the founder, you of course have more passion. It's your baby in a way. So, you really can speak from the heart, and you can really be a little bit more emphatic about what we're trying to deliver. So yeah, those are the challenges. So I've got to stay as healthy as possible. I've got to, I'm in the park trying to walk in the mornings. I'm trying to get to the gym, trying to use the sauna, trying to eat healthier. I've got a lot more supplements than I've ever taken in my life now. It's interesting, but at the end of the day, you surround yourself with loving and caring people. And, that's obviously the key, and I'm happy to say that, I used to work easily 16-hour days every day. And now I'm working typically around 12. So, it's greatly gone down. I'm shutting down around, even 10 hours most days. Yeah. I'm shutting down now typically around 7 p.m. unless there's our events. And that's a big change for me. Very big change. So yeah, it's becoming more stable, which is exciting.
Great. I mean, yeah, you definitely have to take care of yourself first before taking care of others. Now, for the people listening who really want to support individuals with Down syndrome, with autism, or even the homelessness, but they don't know where to start. And you mentioned that just now as well. But what kind of advice, is there a key advice that you would like to give to them on how they can make a difference in their own communities? So maybe not even in Hong Kong, but maybe anywhere else in the world?
Yeah, I think you start with a very low ambition, I would say, and you start with just the goal of taking a step towards something that you're passionate about. A lot of times we sometimes get volunteers coming up and say, oh, I want to do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're coming in with like a home run hit, and you got to, ImpactHK and Love 21 are both as strong as they are now because we're still learning and we're still agile and we're still adapting and improving every day. I don't have a fixed mindset of what I want to accomplish. It's mostly going in with the goal to learn and to improve. And we take one step at a time at improving. And I think for volunteers going into this type of stuff and, trying to pursue a passion or pursue, volunteering with an organization they care about, they should go in with the intention to care and learn and then take small steps forward, right? You don't have to hit a home run in your first bat. It's really about taking that journey and I think you don't see that enough, to be honest. You don't see volunteers really coming in with that level of ambition. Um, they seem to come in with almost a concrete plan, like they're more needed than they are. It's an interesting thing sometimes.
Okay.
Volunteering is complex in NGOs. It's very hard. I mean, with both NGOs, ImpactHK and Love 21, really the greatest reason that we need volunteering is simply to help the volunteer. It's not to help us, right? We're actually having to put out a ton of work to support volunteers, right? So we deserve a lot of credit for creating volunteer programs. But the biggest beneficiary is by far the volunteer, because they're learning about society. They're learning about these two communities. They're learning about how to help in a meaningful way. And they're getting the feeling of contributing and being a part of that community. That's a huge asset for those volunteers. Sometimes volunteers, they come in and they pretend that they're helping us. We don't need bankers to pass out bananas. We need their heart, right? And we need their money. Yeah. And we need them to amplify that message about the importance of caring for people in need and how ImpactHK is actually helping to achieve solutions,
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of in a nutshell, to be blunt, quite blunt, I guess, but yeah, it's quite a blunt answer. But yeah, that's really one of the challenges we have with volunteers. And I think, it should be kind of a little bit reversed. Come in with the idea of being grateful to have the opportunity to learn more, be grateful for the opportunity to meet these communities and to better understand society.
No, I think it's great that you're being blunt about it. I mean, this is really being candid and sharing, because obviously we wouldn't know, right? We feel better about ourselves if we volunteer, but I think it's really, like you put it that way, it's more for the volunteer to actually volunteer. Lots of additional workload, I guess, for you and your team to actually set up these volunteer programs. But it's really about creating that awareness too, right? And no, I really like how you put it this way, and to make us a little bit more aware of who's actually the main beneficiary when it comes to volunteering.
Yeah, I've never actually really shared on that too much. It's kind of first on your podcast. But yeah, no, it is blunt and it's to the point. I think it's totally fair, and volunteers should feel great for stepping up. They could be on their sofa or in the bars having a dinner like everybody else, but they're actually taking the time and they're investing that time and wanting to care and wanting to learn. It is something that they should be proud of. And, that is something you have to do when you're working with volunteers. You have to be grateful, right? And as we should be, for the people stepping up and wanting to care for the community that we also care for. So gratitude is obviously immense in being able to work with volunteers, and also making sure that volunteer opportunities are meaningful, right? You don't want to have volunteers wasting their time and coming out if they're not needed. So, you have to make sure that the actual planning of the activity is actually one that has a lot of value for that volunteer. But yeah, if you can make it, if you can do that, which we've done pretty well, I would say, I think it works quite well. You don't need a university degree to pass out a banana. We just simply made it easier for people to step up and volunteer, and so many caring people like yourself in Hong Kong who have jumped in it. And I think that's why, that's why we found quite a lot of, incredible community of volunteers, like over 40,000 people, which is amazing.
Wow. Amazing. Now, for someone who's going to start out in social impact work or trying to make a difference in their community, what kind of advice do you want to give to them on how to get started? I know a lot of our listeners are also Gen Z, and they're all about social impact. So any advice to these younger generation?
Yeah, I think similar to my point on just taking that step forward, because if you look at ImpactHK and Love 21, I dabbled a little bit in business plans, but I hardly wrote a solid business plan. I didn't really do that at all. It was always a step-by-step process. It was always learning and, okay, let's do this. This is needed. This is a great next step. We can do this. We can do this. And it was building, and it was putting your foot in the water, and sometimes taking it back and reversing track completely. And sometimes it was putting it in and diving fully into that initiative, right? And, I think that was all through having just more of an agile mindset and, trying and putting in a lot of hard work. But I think that's definitely a key. And I also think whenever you're going to start something, it takes a lot of work. One thing you'll never hear out of my mouth really is how I'm striving for work-life balance. I'm just not. It's just not something that I even think about or even really want. The key for me is that I just love my work. I love it. I love waking up in the morning and going to work. I love the community that I work with. I love my staff, our beneficiaries, our friends. It's an amazing opportunity to be doing something that I'm so passionate about. But at the same time, I'm also really hardworking, so I put the work in. I'm not shy from sacrificing, and that sacrifice has paid off. I think sometimes people think it's a little bit too easy to achieve a position. Well, like what I have now, I'm very fortunate to be in this position, but it's taken an incredible amount of sacrifice. And I think sometimes you have to do that, and it will hopefully pay off. It doesn't always, I'm sure. But I think, if you go in with that mindset at the beginning, to be passionate, to use your skills and to keep improving, I think it, should pay off in the long run.
Wow, what an amazing and inspiring conversation. So great that we reconnected again, Jeff. Your passion for supporting the Down syndrome and autistic communities, along with your work with the homelessness in Hong Kong, really shows us the power of compassion and action. And your dedication to making a meaningful difference is a reminder that each of us has the power to create positive change in our communities. So thank you, Jeff, for sharing your journey and the valuable insights on leadership, but also self-care, taking care of yourself, and how to stay grounded while giving so much of yourself to others. If you've been inspired by Jeff's work today, don't forget to share this episode and support the causes he's so passionately advocating for. So Jeff, once again, thank you so much for being here and for all the incredible work that you're doing. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Thriving Misfits. Make sure you like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And until the next time, keep on thriving, Misfits.